Hi, we're Creepy Stir Fry, and today we're going to look at Russia's, and really the world's, creepiest and most controversial camping story. It was the Cold War era, so right after World War II, all the way up until the 90s, a period of time where people were talking about secret experiments, super weapons, and all kinds of crazy stuff that could be happening in Russia. People believed in supernatural things from aliens to cryptid monsters to anywhere in between on the spectrum of conspiracies. And that's where today's story falls. Today we're going to be talking about the Dyatlov Pass. This is the story of 9 students from a nearby Polytechnic Institute who went missing during a ski trip, only to be found later with missing clothes and unusual damage done to their bodies. To this day, still, no one knows what happened, and likely will never find out. The story is so full of questions and not enough answers that I think that's where people's imaginations just go wild with it. The year was 1958 in Soviet Russia, and Igor Dyatlov, for whom the incident is named after, is studying engineering at Ural Polytechnic Institute. He proposed and planned a 16-day cross-country skiing expedition through the Ural Mountains, which divides up western Russia and Siberia. So essentially, this mountain range separates Europe from Russia, which you can imagine was a big deal at the time. On this particular trip, they were to ski 200 miles on a route no Russian had ever taken before. He designed this trip to be as hard as possible so that the group could achieve their certification in Grade 3 outdoorsmanship. He recruited several other students that were also experienced hikers, skiers, and campers. A few days before the group left, the UPI administration added a mystery man to the expedition named Semyon, who at 37 years old was much older than the other students and also a veteran of World War II. No one knew why he was added. The trip finally began on January 23, 1959, and up until the disappearance, the team documented everything in their journals. And at least 5 of the hikers also took cameras with them, documenting the fun, enjoyable experience. A few days into the trip, a man named Yuri Yudin experienced issues with sciatica and had to fully abandon the trip and return home. Ironically, the person most likely to die, or you could say the weakest link, would be the only person to survive. After he left, 9 remained. According to Yuri's itinerary, the team planned to reach the tiny village of Vizhy on February 12th. Dyatlov promised to send word to the university when they arrived, but the telegram never came. 8 days later, on February 20th, a search party was officially released. And then, on February 25th, is where we get the actual incident of what took place. What was discovered on the first day was an abandoned tent and personal items including food and equipment inside. The food was laid out as if someone was about to eat it. Ski boots, axes, and other equipment were neatly placed on either side of the tent. The crew's cameras and journals and clothes were neatly folded and left behind. The tent was found to be on a remote mountain, referred to by the Soviets as Height 1079, or known by indigenous people in the area as Dead Mountain. So the biggest question remains, where did everyone go? After they dug out the tent, they noticed there were multiple slashes all over it. About 100 feet downhill, footprints were found of 8 or 9 people walking towards the tree line. Oddly, this showed that all the students were either barefoot or in stockings, walking through the snow. One person appeared to be wearing a single ski boot. So this is just getting crazy. They're all smart people. What were they doing? The footprints went on for about 700 yards and then just vanished. The next morning, they searched and found 2 bodies next to a tall tree at the edge of the forest. They were found next to a dead fire and in only their underwear. But above them was a tree, which had broken branches and bits of skin and torn cloth on it. Later that day, 3 more dead bodies were found. One of them was Dyatlov himself. They were all facing towards the tent, with their fists clenched, as if they were walking back to it. The autopsies of these 5 people showed bizarre results. All had signs of hypothermia, which is to be expected, but one student had 3rd-degree burns on his shin and foot, and inside his mouth was a chunk of flesh. Another had charred hair on the side of his face and a burned sock. All 5 bodies were covered in scabs, cuts, and bruises. One of the men, Slobodan, who was the one walking with the boot, also had a fractured skull. After this all happened, a homicide investigation was officially opened and led by Lev Ivanov. It was discovered that the slashes in the tent came from inside, meaning the group had slashed their way out of the tent trying to escape something. There were a few early theories on what could have happened. One was the Gulag escapee theory, which believed that prisoners could have escaped from one of Stalin's prison camps. However, they were able to confirm that there were no escapee prisoners at that time. Another theory was that Yuri Yudin did it. If you remember, he was the one sent home early. He was the only person who knew where the group would be and the only one still alive. However, when they brought him to the campsite, he was genuinely disturbed by the scene. He also ended up being very helpful with the investigation by noticing something that no one else did. Some of the campers were wearing clothes that weren't even theirs. Furthermore, Yuri had an alibi for where he was at the time. He was visiting family in another village. Another theory was the Mansi sacred land theory. The Mansi were indigenous people in the area, so it was theorized that maybe they killed the group due to them traveling on sacred land. However, again, these people ended up being very helpful in the investigation. However, the night that everyone was killed, the Mansi did say they saw a huge fireball shoot across the sky. Could this have been a rocket, a missile, a UFO? Who knows? It almost appears to be shown in one of the last camera shots from the group. So just to recap, the group leaves their tents in a blizzard in 20 below, and most were either not wearing clothes or were wearing clothes that were not theirs. At this point, only 5 bodies had been found. In May, the snow begins to finally melt, and that's where we get the other 4 bodies. They were found in a makeshift snow den about 250 meters away from the tree where the others were found. All 4 were lying together under about 10 feet of snow. The damage suggested that they were beaten with a blunt force object. 3 of the 4 bodies had catastrophic injuries. It was said that the injuries were similar to being hit by a car. They had broken ribs, injured skulls. They were also missing their eyes, and one woman, Dabinya, was missing her tongue. The oddest part, perhaps, was that none of the bodies had any external penetrating wounds. Lab tests were also done on several of the clothing items, and it was shown that they emitted high levels of radiation. At the funerals, which were open casket, by the way, many noted that the bodies appeared to be withered and orange, and also appeared to have third-degree burns all over their bodies. 3 months into the investigation, Ivanov was abruptly shut down. The case was closed, conducting 6 deaths came from hypothermia and 3 came from blunt force trauma. The files became sealed, and the area became off limits to skiers for years. The exact area where the young skiers were found is now called Dyatlov Pass. So what happened? Well, there are a lot of theories, right? There's the weapons theory, the KGB theory, which believed that maybe the group saw something they shouldn't have, and so they were taken care of, so to speak. The issue with the KGB theory, or the spy theory, I guess, or the Yeti theory even, is that there weren't any other footprints besides the group. So if the KGB theory ended up being true, everyone in the investigation would have had to have been involved, because they would have had to have gotten rid of the footprints, which is always possible, right? The Russian government could have covered it up. Same with the missile theory, the fire being seen in the sky, maybe it was a missile for weapons testing and the group saw something they shouldn't have. There's also the avalanche theory, but the slope was deemed too low to generate an avalanche, and there just weren't any signs of an avalanche when the investigation took place. There's the bad vibrations theory as well, which states that high winds could have created a sound so jarring and terrifying that when the people heard it, they just took off in a panic, running. There's the Mansi mushroom theory, which believes that maybe the group ingested psychedelic mushrooms. They didn't realize that was going to happen, and they took off in a panic because they started seeing things that weren't there. They started hallucinating. The only issue with that theory is it doesn't explain all the blunt force trauma done to their bodies. They would have all just froze to death if the Mansi mushroom theory were true. So the official ruling as of 2019 is that it was an avalanche. So let me know what you think. I mean, again, there's so many theories about what could have happened. I want to lean towards an avalanche. I mean, there were no signs of an avalanche that day. The slope in the mountain was too shallow for an avalanche, but is officially the ruling today. So let me know what you guys think. Okay? Thank you.